This is an attempt at the first installment of what will be known as, you know what, let's pick a name. I don't know what name to use. This is going to be edited later on as well. I want to get used to hearing my own voice at the same time. Hopefully, this will spawn other people to listen. So let's start by picking a name. Let's start with conceptualizing this program with the title. You're going to hear how I came up with this title, which, I don't know, I guess I'm trying, the point of this recording and subsequent recordings, hopefully in the future I'll be able to time it out, 30 minutes pieces at the most, ranging topics, political topics, entertainment topics. I don't really want to leave anything off limits. There might be a separate section for sports topics as well, but that will be its own entity and probably called something else. But the point of this series would be to get my voice out there. Number one, I want to get my voice out there. I want to share my experiences, also my perspective, and encourage others to leave comments and do the same. I think that it's very valuable to hear other people's perspectives, and I want to hear yours. So we're going to touch on topics that may seem vague at first, but then also we'll get a little bit more specific. But today's first topic, let's start with picking the topic, picking the title. An ongoing investigation. This is an ongoing investigation, a new type of talk show or radio show, if you will, that is going to try its best to be objective as possible when diving into certain narratives and stories, whether it be news or entertainment, just things that are going on in the world from the most middle ground as possible. We're going to try our best as listeners and as me speaking to look at the holistic nature. This is a holistic type of show, one that will stress our understandings, but at the same time try our best not to deal in extremes. I think it's going to be beneficial to hear from people and their perspectives, along with sharing my own. Now, a little bit about my credibility. I am a veteran. I am also a graduate from Moraine Valley Community College in Mass Communication. That's the outline I followed. Then I graduated with a bachelor's degree in journalism with a minor in communication and media from DePaul University, and I am currently enrolled right now studying communication at the graduate level with DePaul. Areas of expertise: relational communication, multicultural communication, as well as sociocultural anthropology. Cultural anthropology has been one of my more interesting subjects that I branched away from communication a bit, because it studies human behavior in the present, and human behavior in the present across cultures. Anthropology. There's some sub components to that as well. There's four main areas of discipline within anthropology. You have that one. You have archaeology. Archaeology is sort of the Indiana Jones version, where you see, people digging up artifacts. Now, what archaeology is attempting to do is study human behavior, but from the past. And I think we can learn a lot from history. I think we can learn a lot from each other in the present as well. This presentation is going to be dealing more with just the aspects of what's going on nowadays. Anthropology is also biological anthropology, as well as linguistic anthropology, which is the study of languages. So we have biological, cultural, linguistic, and archaeology. And like I said, my areas of study at the graduate level will focus on cultural anthropology. So now that you have a little bit about my credibility as where I'm coming from, not just from an educational standpoint, but an experience standpoint, like I said, I've been a non-commissioned officer in the Marine Corps, been on 2 combat deployments, supplemented my points of view with education over the past 3-4 years now, and I'm going to continue on with that course in my life, but I wanted to start this dialogue with people to address discourses, address the way we view things. And I'm going to start by saying it's not easy to really sit down and listen to the other side. It's just not. It's not, but I think it's beneficial because of one of the oldest conservative ideas that has existed, and that's wisdom. Now let's take a look at the definition of wisdom. The definition of wisdom itself, we can go back to biblical time if you want to think about King Solomon, and sort of that route. You could also think of Confucius and other Eastern philosophies that tie in wisdom and truth. Let's not forget Islam or Judaism. Everybody has their own ideas or ideologies of wisdom, and it spawns from this idea that's found in psychology, which is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. The quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. The soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. So we can see judgment coming up a lot here. If we look at what is defined as wisdom in the Oxford Dictionary, let's take a look. We're doing all this in real time. We're going to see how this floats as far as the winds, if you will, of my mind, and hopefully it doesn't sound like too much rambling here. But let's first start with the idea that the show is meant to be holistic, if we're doing a run-through here, and it's meant for us to question the other side, the side that we don't get exposed to, our disagreements, if you will, with other people. We want to be able to enter a space of uncomfortability to a point while still maintaining the balance, if you will, that we're not out to shape or change somebody's mind, but we're out to expand ours. Now, the Oxford English Dictionary defines wisdom as the capacity of judging rightly in matters relating to life and conduct, soundness of judgment in the choice of means and ends, sometimes, less strictly, sound sense in practical affairs, also means knowledge or enlightenment. So now we're going to take this notion of wisdom and we're going to apply it to the concept, our first concept of what this show, let's not call it a show, let's just call it a talk between me and trying to reach out to the masses in the digital realm, wherever you might be, whatever country you come from, of origin, if you can speak English, and I'm trying to learn other languages so I can communicate better, and obviously more holistically with other people, but for now, my limitations are in the English language, so forgive me if English isn't your first language and it's hard for you to understand what I'm talking about. And this isn't to try to sound condescending towards everybody. I understand that language itself does not always have correct translations or meanings. So I'm going to try my best to be as inclusive as possible with the understanding that my limitation first and foremost, if I use correct judgment, see, we're already applying wisdom here, is in my language. So the first topic today, the benefits of understanding culture. Now, culture can mean many, many, many things. But if we take a look at what culture can be defined as, let's go take a look. There is a professor from the University of DePaul who has a unique take on what, and let's just start by saying there's no one definition of what culture is. And it's not to say that there is no absolute truths in life. I don't think I agree so much with that statement, but I think a lot of the things that we as people call truths are really subjective in nature, which in some way dilutes things, such as if you're in American culture nowadays, fake news is a hot topic. I mentioned too, DePaul University is in Chicago, Illinois, and then on the outskirts of Chicago, Moraine Valley is in Palos Hills, Illinois, so as people listen to this, and it does get broadcast and will get put on the internet, obviously, I think it does well to understand exactly what city I'm a part of, and which also shapes my perspective here. This author is Dr. Larry Mayo. Just a brief attribution, so you don't think I'm stealing somebody else's phrases here. I'll always try to be upfront and honest as far as where I'm getting my publication work. Now, he's done work at this college for some time now, but culture means more than just one simple concept. A person is considered to be cultured, for example, if he or she attends opera and ballet or reads Shakespeare. But this is just one idea or perspective of culture. I don't want to dive into too much of his concept of culture, because what we have to understand when we're talking about culture is we as individuals are shaped by our own country's ideologies, and even on a micro level, we're shaped by the state that we live in, whether it's conservative or Republican. We're also shaped by the counties we live in, whether you're rural or urban. Obviously, the problems in urban environments are definitely going to shape somebody's experiences when it comes to dense populations, crime rates, compared to having, a sheriff in a rural area with a few deputies. Those things are something that we need to consider when we talk about culture, because culture itself, really, there's no one definition that we can look to and say, like, this is culture. But what we can try to do is pinpoint exactly some of the aspects of culture. Now, if we look to let's try Oxford first. Oxford Dictionary. The arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively, the ideas, customs, and social behaviors. If we take that and try to apply it from another angle here, instead of Oxford, let's use, these are things that are readily available. In another recording, I'll try to talk a little bit more about curiosity, because I think that all this stems first from being curious. The curious mind, in my opinion, is the most powerful mind. The eagerness to learn, if you will, is what gets us going, and just makes us more well-rounded as individuals, not just more educated, but more savvy, if you will, to be able to understand our position in the world. Because we all understand life isn't fair, but if we can begin to scrape at the understanding of the benefits of culture and how to understand culture, or at least be able to see and identify some of the aspects of culture, we're just going to be more sound communicators. Obviously, I think it will lead to less stress because we'll understand our position better. And as we all know, people, when it comes to the unpredictability of life, some people are a little bit more anxious than others. But, just being more well prepared creates less anxiety, which can lead to less stress, which can lead to an overall happier lifestyle, I think. And I think that's what the benefit of culture brings. And if we look at Merriam-Webster, the act of developing the intellectual and moral faculties, especially by education, expert care and training, enlightenment and excellence of taste acquired by intellectual and aesthetic training. Okay, so let's not get too far up caught in the jargon here, but the idea of culture is that it takes a group of people sharing ideas, sharing ideas, and then imitating these ideas, not just with each other, but also from a generational standpoint, teaching their children, their grandchildren, and their friends' kids to imitate them as well. So let's put this in a more example context. One of the things in America, let's talk about income inequality, perhaps. Now, this is all from a holistic point of view, but what is the culture or the shared ideas and belief of income equality in America? It's the idea that America, if I'm wrong on this, hit me on it. But from what I stemmed in my years of experience working and then studying this aspect of income inequality, or lack of equality in income, stems from the notion that America is a place where it's the land of opportunity, if you will. It's a place where you can come, you can work hard, and you can move up the social ladder. That's the fairy tale definition, if you will. Now, it's not always the case, because what happens if the social ladder, you're starting at a different point in the social ladder? That means you'll have to work harder to get to the same point as somebody else whose family started a little bit further up. And what I mean by that is, if I make $10 million right now and I have a child, my child will be born a millionaire. It's as simple as that. But if I come as a proletarian, and a proletarian is somebody who in a society is valued for their physical body or physical labor, if you will, that's their most valued asset in life. But if I come from that kind of background and I have a child, well, then my child is not going to be a millionaire. He's going to be a proletarian. So that means that he's going to have to work like someone else's father did in order to achieve millionaire status so his kid can be called a millionaire upon birth. So what does that mean, or what does that even create? Well, that creates starting points. It creates different starting points for different people. So when we talk about culture or income equality, we have to understand first and foremost then that people just start on different levels. It's because life isn't fair. You don't get to choose who your father and mother is. You don't get to choose to, really, where you come from as far as a socioeconomic background. It's as simple as that. And then it comes from the notion that life isn't fair. Although we can consider that once you are able to breathe life into yourself, that you are in essence given free will. But even free will can be something argued in philosophy by Rene Descartes or Immanuel Kant, if you will, who is the proponent of that idea of free will. So everything, not everything, but a lot of things are up in the air as far as what culture should and can be defined as. But when we look at income inequality as far as it relates to culture, or the idea of everybody can work hard and get ahead, that may be the case, but everybody's ahead is going to be different. So what are the benefits of culture then, or understanding income equality or inequality in a culture like America? Well, the benefits of that are understanding that when you look at somebody who has a ragtag shirt and you're a savvy business person who has a lot more as far as material possessions are concerned, you can look at that person and it allows you to create a sense of empathy, because now you've understood that income inequality culture, or these shared ideas, aren't necessarily true for everyone. And while this person may be somebody who just made some poor choices in life, this also could be somebody who just started lower on the economic pole, and so now they have to shop at Walmart, whereas you can afford to shop at Macy's. Again, it's not like you're wrong for shopping at a higher end store, but it's this idea that understanding what culture is allows yourself to be able to connect to people better, to be able to have a better conversation, a more in-depth, rich conversation, to foster better relationships. Let's make no mistake here. People just start off at different parts of the social ladder. So one benefit, or if we were to talk about benefits of culture, it's to understand income inequality or equality, and it also helps you to recognize through self-reflection where you stand on that social ladder. By understanding that, you can then be able to connect with people in different ways. You can connect or empathize with people and build long-lasting relationships with people. And whether or not you want to or not, at least you'll be able to have an expansive mindset that allows you to not get angry and upset every time you see somebody on the bus that just looks like they're begging for change because of this or that. Well, this person's lazy. Well, no, this person may be lazy, but they may not be lazy. And while sometimes it may be a little overwhelming to think holistically in this manner, it broadens horizons in people, and it brings us out of this idea, this allegory of the cave, if you will, to where we can see the truth for what it is. Because when we start assuming somebody is lazy when we don't even know who the hell they are, that doesn't do well for relationships. It doesn't do well for people in general. And you're like, well, what does it have to do with me? Well, let's look at it from the other person's perspective. If you assume that a person didn't work hard, and they look poor or homeless, and that everything they did was their fault because they have free will, right? Well, how do you think that person's going to act towards you when they know that isn't true? Because they know themselves, they know where they came from, they know their experiences. They might act hostile towards you. So in your assumptions, you create a hostile environment. So this is the benefit for all parties. We walk into conversations with a little bit of extra knowledge, to where we don't judge, we don't assume. We open our minds to new possibilities. And in those possibilities, when we look at it from the other person's perspective, it fosters more peace in an environment. What does more peace in an environment lead to? Well, I mean, there's a lot of things it could lead to. It can lead to long-lasting friendships. It can lead to a better economy. It can lead to less crime. It can lead to so many avenues. And I know I'm hitting on a lot of other big things here, and maybe some of the other talks, if you will, can be continuations of this idea of what the benefit of understanding culture can bring to us. Because from a holistic point of view, if you don't think that understanding somebody else's point of view and at least giving them some consideration that the forces that brought them to their point, if they're not as high on the social ladder as you, doesn't equal less crime, well, then I'll make my argument in another section, because that could take hours to talk about. But at the same time, this is how we have to view things. It's using our judgment to understand that we don't get to choose where we're born from when it comes to a social equality standpoint. And that's just one aspect of a whole host of different factors that equal culture. Culture can be so many things. There's gay culture, there's sports culture. But it's this notion that the act of developing the intellectual and moral faculties, expert care and training, that leads to more well-rounded individuals in safer environments. So it's in everybody's benefit to expand their knowledge, reach out their hand, and realize that understanding culture, or at least not assuming that you know someone else's culture, is just better overall, and creates a safer environment, creates a safer community, creates a sense of empathy, where we can look at these people as human beings and not just some statistic. And I think that's the important part. I think it's also hard for some individuals who have a higher level of privilege to see this, because what's the point of it? Well, it's because they're not looking at it holistically. If you can't even begin to connect with somebody and realize that they're part of the same community as you, and that giving them at least some sense of respect or dignity might equal them being a kinder person towards you and others, how does that not affect you? How does it not affect you when you're on the urban train in Chicago, or when you're somewhere down south in the United States, or when you're somewhere, if you live in Europe, going across the train through Germany, whether you're in the eastern side of the world? I mean, we're talking about basic, fundamental human behaviors and how to relate to people. And it starts with the benefits of understanding culture. So let's recap here. The benefits of understanding culture can be vast, and like I said, there's many different things that there are many different avenues one can take, but what we talked about here was income equality or inequality, and this master narrative notion, if you will, that in order to work hard, or America is the land of opportunity, and if you work hard, you can move up the social ladder. Well, we have to understand from a holistic perspective that the culture of income equality or inequality, that answer doesn't suffice. It doesn't suffice because everybody is born into different backgrounds or families. Some people are born into proletarian family, other people are born millionaires, and most of us are born somewhere in between. So no matter what starting point you have, if one person started in the middle, one at the bottom, and one at the top, and they all worked equally, they'd move up the ladder, but they'd still be in different positions on that same ladder. And what is the benefit of understanding that social equality or inequality gap from a cultural perspective or a holistic perspective? Is that when we don't assume somebody is a certain way without knowing them, it fosters better relationships, richer communication, and more peaceful societies in the long run. Because when you start assuming that someone didn't do something, or they did something wrong to get to where they were at, without truly knowing that individual, I mean, I don't know about you, but if somebody told me that I didn't work hard to get where I was at, I mean, I wouldn't think that they were a nice person, and I might not like that person. And when you go around doing that to every person you meet, all that does is create more hostility in a community, raises the tensions. Higher tensions in a society might cause more crime, It might cause more discourses or misunderstandings and leads to less peaceful societies. So when we begin to broaden our knowledge and use sound judgment that's found in what can be called wisdom, the capacity of judging rightly in matters relating to life and conduct, soundness of judgment in the choice of means and ends, we can begin to understand that the benefits of culture, we haven't even scratched the surface. But to understand the benefits, or the benefits of understanding culture, the benefits of understanding culture takes wisdom, it takes patience, but in the end, it will help any single community, no matter what part of the society you live in. And this is where we need to start and end our first conversation. And I hope to hear back from you and what you guys think. Like I said, if you're open to listening to my perspective, I'll be open to listening to yours, whether I agree with it or not. And I think that's where we should start the conversation. Thank you for your time.